Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wellness Wednesday. I hope you are having a fabulous morning already. And I am so excited to bring you part 2 of our breakdown on the 4-part Being a Firework series. I did an overview of how to be a firework in honor of the 4th of July on July 3rd. And then there was such great feedback that it became evident that we could break that down a little bit more. So there were 8 components, and we're doing 2 a week. So this is part 2. If you are just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I'm a mom, a nana, a girlfriend, a graduate student studying for my Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling, an activewear addict with an online boutique, best-selling author, and at least a chapter in a best-selling book. And so much more. There's so much more I love, but mostly being a wellness advocate. And I started Wellness Wednesday because there is so much that we can share with each other to improve the quality of our lives. I have been in a lifelong battle with anxiety and depression. And I don't know what's up with my lighting today. I've been in a lifelong battle with anxiety and depression. It's something I considered myself to be in recovery with, but never completely over. And I have learned that peer support, sharing my journey and the things that I have done and learning from the things that you have done tremendously help each other. So that's what Wellness Wednesday is all about. If you're here, let me know you're here because Facebook doesn't always show me all the things. So let me know you're here. And if you ask a question or drop a comment and I don't respond, it's simply because I didn't see it, not because I'm ignoring you. And I will definitely respond afterwards. So let's get started. This is episode 92, and this is part 2 of how to be a firework, being the firework. So being a firework can be a metaphor for living a vibrant, impactful, and inspiring life. And if you've been listening, if you've been watching, then you may hear some themes or repetitions, and that's normal because as I delve into the broad topic of wellness, what I've learned personally, and what you're probably learning as well, is that there is a lot of overlap on things that we can do. They're mindset related that directly impact our health and wellness, and vice versa. So you're going to hear repetitions. And I always think that's a positive thing because as kids, we learn best by repetition. And I can tell you personally, as an adult, there are things that I heard over and over and over again that I did not believe until I was in the right place to receive it. And then it started clicking. So sometimes it takes 8 billion and one times before it clicks and you're like, oh, that makes sense. Or 50 other people tell you, but then you hear it from somebody else, a stranger, an acquaintance, or even a friend. And all of a sudden it clicks. So let's get started. So, parts 3 and 4 of the original Being a Firework overview was making an impact and spreading joy and wonder. Now I'm going to tell you that I think these two are a little bit backwards. I think they should be flipped, but, it made more sense to go in the same context that I did with the original video. And if you want to find that, it's in my videos tab on my Facebook page, and I will also drop the link for last week's video and maybe even that first one too in the comments in case you're new to this and didn't see either of those. And that way you can go back and get some context. I also recommend keeping a pad of paper handy if you can, or just know that you can come back to this later if you want to go through and pause and take some notes for later. Okay, let's get started. So part 3 or part 1 for today is making an impact. And the first step in making an impact is to take bold actions and not be afraid to take risks. That sounds scary already, doesn't it? So this starts with stepping out of your comfort zone. We have a tendency to get complacent and kind of live in our comfort zones because we've mastered all the things, whether it's at job or at home. We've mastered the things, so we stick with where we're comfortable. And we don't step outside of that zone because that's uncomfortable and it's scary. But it's important to do that. It's important to try new things and meet new people. And there's some pretty bold actions that I've taken. Actually, starting Wellness Wednesday 92 episodes ago was one of them. I had it on my heart for a long time. But one of the things that held me back was that I didn't know who could benefit or who might want to hear from me or why anybody would want to listen to me. And I've been blessed to find that many people do look for this video every week And I've received much feedback from people at varying times of how something I've said in one of these videos has inspired somebody. So that's an example of stepping out of the comfort zone. Other things that I've done that have helped me step out of my comfort zone was going back to school both times. When the housing industry crashed and my job, which was housing industry related, went to part-time for a couple of years, I went back to school for the first time. I never saw myself going to college, but I went to pursue my bachelor's. And I discovered while I was there that my first love was and remains psychology, and learning about how people work. And that has morphed into my Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling, which I just retired from that job in 2022, being a loose term, so that I could pursue my master's and finally become a licensed clinical mental health counselor. So those are some bold actions I've taken, but they started with baby steps, like learning to drive by myself, because when I was married, my husband wanted to be the one to drive everywhere, especially if we went out of town. So I never got an opportunity to do that. So those were baby steps for me. Now I'll drive anywhere. I don't care. As long as I have GPS, I'm good to go. But I was very fearful of driving for a very long time, of driving anywhere outside of the county by myself. So it was baby steps, short trips to like Ocala until I got to the point where I wasn't so afraid to go out of town. Other things like my activewear boutique, I frequently state that it's the best decision I never overthought. It was a bold step. It was a very non-premeditated step. I asked a couple of questions and I jumped, which is highly unusual for me. But it has led me to an amazing VIP community, amazing clothes. Good morning, Miss Danielle. And just, it has expanded my circle in ways that I never knew it could and never thought I needed, not to mention my skill set, not to mention the confidence it gave me to be on here today talking to you about wellness. So many little things that seemed little at the time that turned out to be big, huge things. So I cannot emphasize enough. This is an old cliche quote, but I totally believe in it. Nothing ever grows from a comfort zone. You have to step outside of that comfort zone in order to start to begin to take bold action and risks, even calculated ones. Now, by risks, I don't mean, go jump off a bridge tomorrow. What I mean are small daily risks that you can take to increase your experiences and improve your experiences and increase your circle. So what stops us from doing that? Well, obvious things, past experiences that haven't gone well that make us hesitant to try again. But remember, and guys, if I look a little distracted, my hummingbirds are very active this morning and they're right outside my window and I think they're incredible. So one of these days, maybe if I can grab a picture of one later, I'll post it in the comments. So what stops us, again, is past experiences that haven't gone well. We sometimes make us afraid to try again. And we can't succeed if we don't keep trying, right? If we just don't ever try, we can't succeed at anything. Practice makes perfect. Another old cliche that really, really works here. If you try it and you suck at it, try it again. Because each time you do it, you're going to get a little better. I've told the story before about the first time that I was supposed to go live for my business and I decided not to. I was given the option of going live or doing a pre-recorded video. And after like 50 takes of the pre-recorded video, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to do the pre-recorded again. I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. And I got better as I went on. So personal insecurities will also stop us from doing this. Like I just described when I was starting Wellness Wednesday, who would want to listen to me? Who could benefit from this? I don't think anybody would want to hear me. Sometimes we doubt our own knowledge and our own experiences. So those are things that can hold us back. And then, of course, most of the time, it's other people's expectations or other people's opinions that hold us back. But if it's something that you really feel pulled to do, feel called to do, then it's time to take that baby step, whether you're worried about what anybody else is thinking or not. Because if we do everything based on what we think others will think of us, I think I just said the word think a lot. We might never accomplish anything that's truly great for us. And being something that's great for us doesn't have to be great for anybody else. So My challenge for you on this particular topic is, and there's going to be several challenges throughout this video, just like there were last week, is to think of one bold action you can take today and write it down. Share it in the comments if you're comfortable. You can start totally small. If it means sitting in a different place at a meeting or at dinner, or going out to eat for lunch by yourself, or just trying something new, trying something different, then I encourage you to do that today. Take one tiny baby step toward a bold action, write it down, figure out a way to implement it today, and then share it in the comments again if you're comfortable. So the next step to that is to leave a mark. One of the ways that you can take bold action and make an impact is to leave a mark. Now, how do we do that? Well, we start by striving to make a positive impact, because the ripple effects there are amazing. In fact, your ripple effects, the ripple effects are there whether you choose positive or negative. And a quote I really like from Mother Teresa is, "I cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters that create many ripples." I may have paraphrased or changed a word here or there. So what does that mean? It means that, again, you can start small. So how do you start small and leave a mark? Well, a very good friend of mine, sort of a mentor, used the words a long time ago: time, treasure, talent. And this was in reference to the organization I worked for, but it applies across the board for organizations, any kind of making an impact or helping in your community. An example I used last week is a recent fundraiser that was done for an injured deputy in my local area, where one person learned some information and stood up and said, "This is what we're going to do." And in a very short time, with the help of other people who donated their time, treasure, or talent, which means they had resources that they could donate that weren't financial, like, maybe creatively making baskets. Maybe you're creative and you're good at making baskets. That's something that you could do for community organizations, or, as fundraisers. You can donate your time. You can volunteer somewhere. There's lots of ways to do that. I'm going to dig into that a little bit more in a few minutes. And you can leave a mark just by starting small. You can make small donations. I already spoke. Good morning, Miss Tina. I authored a chapter in a best-selling book. It was a compilation of women who have overcome incredible odds and had stories to tell that were inspiring. I'm very excited about that. I sold, and am still selling, if you're interested, that's the one and only plug, signed copies of this book to raise funds from my local NAMI affiliate, because I think that inspiration and knowing that somebody else has been through something and can come out on the other side of it is really super important. So these are small ways that sometimes don't seem very big in the moment, but they really, really make a difference. And that's just a tiny sampling of ways that you can leave a mark. So time, treasure, talent. Treasure meaning if you have the funds, but you don't have the time, then donate the funds. If you have a specific talent that might help a person or a group or an organization, then use it. It's not always about that dollar donation. So think of ways that you can start to leave a mark. Think of a time the activity for this topic is to write down a time when you positively impacted somebody's life and how you felt about that. And if you're comfortable sharing, do that in the comments. And also, please, I encourage you to suggest other ways that you can make a difference in the comments. And we'll see if it matches up to something I'm going to suggest in a few minutes, or if it's a whole new idea. But no matter what, it's likely to inspire somebody that's reading through the comments and watching this video. So definitely suggest ways you can make a difference, and write down a time, like I said, that you felt like you had a positive impact, or someone told you you had a positive impact, and how you felt about that, how you felt about doing it, how you felt about hearing it, all of those things. So another way to make an impact is to be memorable. And to be memorable, you create moments and experiences. The power of memories and experiences is greater than anything else. It's greater than the most expensive gift. It is, and speaking of gifts, I'm going to make a little play on words. That the best way to create moments and experiences is to be the present or be present. That's how you can associate those two. It's to be present. We're on our phones a lot, y'all. I'm on my phone right now, and probably you are too. But when we have an opportunity to truly spend time with somebody, to give somebody of our time or our talent, it is important to be distracted, to not be distracted by maybe other things than beautiful God's creatures like the hummingbirds, but to be present. It's great to have the phone to take pictures, but if you're spending so much time taking pictures that you don't actually remember what went on during that time, then you're not being present. My grandson made a comment to me yesterday when he was here, and he's like, "Are you going to be on your phone all day?" And I thought hard about that, and I had to remember that he's 7. So if I pick up the phone once in between the movie we're watching together and the, pool time, then to him that's all day. But it also kind of illuminates what is memorable and what is not. Now, many, many years from now, he's probably not going to think of it as me being on the phone all the time. But he is more likely to remember that time we spent watching movies, that time we spent in the pool, versus an expensive gift that I could buy him. Which one is he more likely to remember? And that's what I'm talking about here. So create moments and experiences. I'm a big fan as kids get older of giving experiences instead of presents for Christmas, birthdays, etc. Taking them somewhere, tickets to somewhere, things like that where time is required. Versus worrying about the expense of it or more toys to play with or whatever. So one of the best ways that you can create memories and create powerful experiences that make an impact is to be present. One of the things that we do every time my grandkids come over is we go for a walk in the morning. So we've got a little talk time. We can enjoy nature, get a little exercise. And for me, that's one of the best experiences of the day. And I don't know what that looks like when they get older, but hopefully they're going to remember that time more than anything. Okay, so the activity here is to write down a memorable moment that you created or experienced and share, of course, if you're comfortable, but you don't have to. And another way that you can create memorable moments, excuse me, is to think about hosting a special event. I have a friend that just did a 40th surprise party for her boyfriend, who is also somebody that we know well in the community. And it was a great time. She did a great job. He was surprised. He felt truly loved, and it was awesome. You can also give a thoughtful gift. One of the things that stresses me out about Christmases and birthdays is not the expense. It's because I really try to take time to find gifts that are thoughtful and mean something to the receiver. And sometimes that's, not very expensive at all or a lot expensive. But I try to put thought behind it, and the price tag doesn't matter if it's something that they'll truly love. Spend quality time with loved ones. I just spoke about my grandson. I also have a friend. This is another component of making memories and being a bright spot in somebody's life. She spoke on Facebook. She's a nurse, and she spoke on Facebook about a lady that she sees several times a week in the hospital, and said that they chat every time she sees her. And she doesn't really know why that woman is in the hospital. She has some speculation, but it really doesn't matter. She said that seeing her is a bright spot in her day every time. But what I couldn't help but think about is if it's such a bright spot for this nurse, imagine the bright spot it is for this lady who's coming to the hospital for whatever reason. And if I get a little teary, sorry. And my friend takes the time to speak with her and takes a little bit of time with her every time she sees her. And if this woman is a bright spot, that means that my friend is smiling and glowing and exhibiting joy when she talks to this woman, and what kind of ripple effect that is probably having on that woman who clearly has some negative reason, more than likely, that she is in the hospital every single day. Let's face it, unless we're volunteers or we work there, we don't visit hospitals just for fun. So think about that, and think about ways that you can create memorable moments for others, which also means creating memorable moments for yourself. So The next part of this making an impact is to spread joy and wonder. And that's kind of what I just touched on a little bit. We see what we focus on. And then what we focus on is kind of what we get. And I've said this before. I've used the story of the red car. If you're driving to work and you don't really notice anything, but then somebody says to you when you get to work, did you see a red car on your way? What are you going to be looking for on your way home? That's going to be in your mind, and you're going to start suddenly noticing all the red cars. I drive Jeep Cherokees. I love my old Jeep Cherokees. But when I first decided that I kind of liked that vehicle and that might be what I wanted, guess what I started seeing everywhere? I never knew how many Jeep Cherokees were on the road until I started thinking about buying one. That this was like my choice of a vehicle that I could live with for a very long time, that I could work on myself if I wanted to. And I started seeing them everywhere. So what we get is what we focus on. That can be positive or negative. It's really hard to approach life with enthusiasm if we're focused on whatever negative is going on. If we're focused on stubbing our toe when we walked out the door for work, or the coffee we spilled on the way. If that's all we think about and all we talk about all day is what went wrong in the morning, we're going to see things wrong all day. But if we're focused on the positive, then we are more likely to spread it, feel it, exude it, and ripple it on to everybody else. I just made that phrase up. So those emotions are contagious. So the more we focus on our passions and what we're excited about, and practicing gratitude, what we're grateful for, the more that it not only affects our day, but it affects everybody around us that's interacting with us. So for an enthusiasm boost today, think about what you are most passionate about and how you can focus on that. Share it in the comments, again, if you're comfortable. But do more of that. The things that bring you joy, the things that bring you passion, that fulfill your passion, incorporate those things into your everyday routine. And you'll be surprised as you focus on those things instead of the negative, how much it changes your aura, if you will, and your attitude and the vibes that you're exuding, and how much it can have a positive impact on everybody around you. So like I said, think about something you're passionate about, figure out a way to incorporate that joy and excitement into your everyday routine. Included in that is maintaining a positive attitude. And this is a huge, great first step in doing that. But that also includes finding the silver linings. And I know you've heard me say this before, even in bad situations, there are silver linings. If your car doesn't start when you leave the house, yes, that's a giant pain in the butt. Oh my gosh, what's wrong with my car? But it's better than having it not start when you're somewhere where you're nowhere near home, you're nowhere near you can find somebody, you're far away. Good morning, Chris. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you resonated with that statement. So there's always silver linings to be found. I freaked out when my daughter got in her first car accident. So did she. What was the silver lining? The silver lining was the vehicle was paid off, and even though the vehicle was totaled, she was not injured. That was the silver lining, and that she learned a lesson that day. So there's, even in the worst of things, there's a silver lining somewhere, and you can find that by being grateful and focusing on your gratitude and the more positive side of things. And I know there are some situations where that's really difficult. But in the example of a friend of mine, a mentor of mine several years ago, whose house burned down, who remained extremely positive through the whole thing, what was their focus? Their focus was that they were not hurt. The house was just a house and it could be rebuilt, and that there was nothing that could be done about it. So they needed to move forward. And those are amazing things to focus on. So an activity that you can do to help you in this department is to list 3 things that you are grateful for, and try to do that every single day. Some people, there's different schools of thought. Some people think it's good to start your day listing 3 things you're grateful for. People think it's better to end your day so that when you go to sleep, you're marinating on those things you're grateful for and those good things instead of negative. I think you can do it any time of day that works for you. Both of those times, and add it in the middle. If you're having a tough day, you can stop in the middle of the day and be like, here's what I'm grateful for so far today. And it might change your whole day. So that's another activity for you. In the process of spreading joy and wonder, one of the ways that you can do that is through random acts of kindness. Now, this is where I love to talk about the impact of these types of things on both the giver and the receiver. I stole this term from a mentor, and I like it, and so I just kind of made it my own. I like to give selfishly. What does that even mean? How can you give selfishly? Well, when I give, whatever it is, time, treasure, or talent, I give because it makes me feel better. For no other reason. Not because I expect something back. Not because I see the impact. Because sometimes I like to do it secretly, to be honest with you. Most of the time, whenever I can, I like to give secretly. So I don't always get to see the impact. But I do it selfishly because I like the way it makes me feel. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel good to pay for somebody in the drive-thru behind me and glance in the rearview mirror and see their face of their big smile or their face of shock when they find out that somebody has paid for their drink, their meal, whatever the case may be. Sometimes they wave. I almost never wave back. I almost always try to pretend like I didn't see it and I just go. But it always just gives me this feeling of joy. And it's such a tiny little thing. So there's not only are you benefiting the giver when you give time, treasure, or talent, but you are benefiting yourself because more often than not, exactly, Tina. So you understand what I mean. More often than not, when you do that, especially if you're doing it in secret, you may not see the results. But if it makes you feel good to do something nice, I kind of like the secret part because I like feeling like, Santa or a little elf or whatever the case may be at the time, fairy godmother. I like that feeling. And I don't care if anybody else knows. I'm also a woman of faith. So I like the way it makes me feel. I talk to God about it. I know God saw it. That's all I care about. But like I said, that's what I mean by giving selfishly. So you can spread joy through doing little things. And again, it doesn't have to be money, time, treasure, talent. I used to think that I never made a difference in my old job because it wasn't, it was a trade organization, and it helps a lot of people, but it wasn't the type of helping that I wanted to do. But many times I would receive phone calls from people looking for references and they had been taken advantage of by scammers, and they needed help and they had already maybe paid out a whole bunch of money to have things fixed that weren't fixed or weren't fixed correctly, or the person ghosted them. And so they would frequently end up calling me for referrals or for help. And more than once I received a thank you card. I received a thank you note in the mail for helping them, or sometimes just for listening to them because nobody else would let them tell the whole story and actually listen to them before they started trying to get them off the phone. And that's huge. Excuse me, postnasal drip, y'all, is a pain in my, you know what. So I'm looking at my notes here because I'm trying to, I wanted to go more on this thank you note. So you can write thank you notes, and sometimes that makes people's day because it's so seldom to have a handwritten note anymore. Send a little bit of handwritten snail mail. You can donate to a charity. Again, the time, treasure, talent thing. You can help a neighbor out. When my daughter went into the hospital to have my grandson, nobody had touched the yard for weeks. It was middle of summer. Well, it wasn't middle of summer. It was late summer because my grandson was born in October. But the yard was just out of control. And while we were all at the hospital, our awesome neighbors were next door weed whacking and mowing and trimming and doing what they could to help in their way to make it easier when we got back. And that was incredible. It was incredible. It was a sense of relief because we were all focused on my daughter, so nobody was thinking about trying to make the time to mow the yard. Those are little things you can do. You don't have to go mow the neighbor's yard. Maybe you see the neighbor's flower beds are full of weeds and you know that they can't get down and take care of that. That's something you could do if it's something you love. Find a way to take something you love and help somebody else with it. And that is how you can truly spread joy through acts of kindness. So I challenge you to perform a random act of kindness within the next week. And if you're comfortable, share what it was. If you prefer to do it in secret, just say, hey, I did it. Thank you for reminding me. And that way I know you did it. But I challenge you to perform a let's try that again. A random act of kindness within the next week. And like I said, drop a comment once you've done it. You don't have to tell us what it was, because I understand the desire to do it in secret, but drop a comment. Let us know you did it. Like I said, help a neighbor, donate to a charity. I feel like there's something else I wanted to say here and it's not coming to me. So I'll go back to it if I need to. So the final component here today is to celebrate your milestones and achievements. One of the ways that you can impact others through enthusiasm and joy is to make sure you take the time to celebrate achievements, whether it's for you or somebody else. And it doesn't matter how big or small they are, especially if you're just starting to step out of your comfort zone. Celebrating those little tiny baby steps, like I talked about in the beginning, are super important. They're super important, y'all. We have a tendency in this day and age, and I've said this before, we set our goals, and when we hit one, we don't even stop. We're like, okay, cool, next. And we don't take the time to celebrate. So here's my funny little story for the day. I was line dancing yesterday. After my grandchild left, as I had one of my grandchildren over for the day yesterday, I needed to burn off a little bit of excess energy. So I practiced line dancing for an hour, and it's hard for me to find a class that works with my schedule in the area. So I just do it at home, so that I can keep those dances fresh in my head, the ones that I love. But I had recently relearned an old one that I loved, called Moves Like Jagger. And, I was struggling a little bit with the tag. Now, so if you don't line dance, you don't know what a tag is, but it's a spot in the music where you stop and do something else to fill that space before you go on with the dance. So I pretty much had the dance nailed again, but I was struggling with the tag. Eric was cooking dinner in the kitchen, and I was dancing in this little box room adjacent from the kitchen, and I nailed that tag. And this was like towards the end of my line dancing, so I was already high energy. I was sweating. I was really feeling the endorphins from the workout, because it is an awesome workout. And I hooted and hollered and was like, yes, when I nailed that tag. I don't know that he actually knew what I was talking about, but I was super excited, and I took a minute, not that I had long because I had to keep going with the dance, but I took a moment to celebrate it. And those are the kinds of things I'm talking about. You accomplish anything that you haven't been able to do before, or that you've been wanting to do for a while and just weren't getting to, take a moment to celebrate, because it will bring you joy. It will bring you self-appreciation. If somebody else has accomplished a little tiny goal and you know how important it was to them, even if it seems small to everybody else, give them a little card, write them a little note, shoot them an email or text, say, I'm so proud of you. These are the kinds of things that can spread joy. These are the kinds of things that can inspire, and they are the kinds of things that make an impact by spreading joy and wonder. So, again, I challenge you to celebrate your wins, big and small. Write something down that you've achieved recently and plan a way to celebrate it. Share in the comments if you're willing. You don't have to, but make sure you're taking a couple of minutes to pat yourself on the back, thank God, show gratitude, write it in your gratitude journal, whatever that is, whatever celebrating it means to you. So with that said, I got to wrap it up because your time is valuable. So like I said at the beginning, the second part of this, the spread joy and wonder, probably should have been before make an impact, because that is one of the many ways that you can make an impact. And one of the biggest ways you can make an impact is by spreading joy and wonder. Doing these activities we talked about can do that, and they can boost your enthusiasm so that you in turn make an impact that has ripple effects. So whatever order, it doesn't matter. All of these things are intertwined. So you don't have to go in a particular order. Do what's working for you. Take the things that you learn from this video, and pick one thing today that you can do that's going to improve your joy, improve your enthusiasm, your self-confidence, and help you to move forward in a positive way that impacts others. So again, you can go back to this video. It's going to stay right here. Take notes, spread the joy and enthusiasm, start practicing these things. If you are worried that you can't find the video later, there's 3 dots. There will be 3 dots up in the corner that you can click on that'll give you an option to save. And then you can go to your Facebook menu and find your saved items. And there's my smiling face later when you need it, or just scroll back through my page. You will find it. You can't miss this shirt. I mean, it's so bright. It makes an impact all by itself, right? So it should be easy to spot this video when you need it again if you can't figure out how to save it. And most importantly, go out and make an impact. And next week, we'll talk about components 5 and 6 of the original overview, which was overcoming challenges and creating connections. So you can see how all of this ties together. At least I hope you can. And hopefully come back next week and get this next part. I will drop the links to the last 2 videos, the overview video, the one that started this series, and the first video in the 4-part series in the comments for you. And I'm looking forward to your comments if you're willing to share about ways that you've impacted others, shown gratitude, random acts of kindness, whatever we talked about today. Drop those in the comments. I can't wait to see them. And most importantly, be well. I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.